They weren't designer, they weren't shiny or expensive or rare. They were plain, soft leather, low-heeled pumps with faint creases at the toes and a scratch near the left ankle strap. But when Nathan opened the box and saw them wrapped in old tissue paper, his hands trembled like he was holding a holy relic. They were his mother's shoes, and he hadn't seen them in 27 years. Grief has a strange way of sleeping. It settles deep under memories and routines and relationships. And then one day, something smaller sent, a sound, or in this case, a pair of forgotten shoe shakes it awake. Nathan had returned home to empty the house after his father passed. A modest 2-bedroom bungalow in the suburbs of Rochester, New York, the kind with plastic flowers in the front yard and lace curtains that never came down. His father, Harold, was a creature of habit. Soup at 6, news at 7, crossword at 9. Since his wife died in 1995, he'd lived alone, visiting the same diner, reading the same war novels, never changing the thermostat. The house was just as Nathan remembered it, frozen in time, except for the dust. He found the shoebox in the attic, beneath a moth-eaten quilt and a stack of old calendars. No label, no markings, just a piece of masking tape across the top that read, in shaky handwriting, her last steps. He sat on the attic floor for hours, holding them, the shoes, her shoes. He remembered her wearing them to church, to parent-teacher meetings, to his high school graduation, and most vividly to court. Because his mother had been arrested. What most people didn't know was that Elaine Harper, by every measure a quiet homemaker, had once stood in a courtroom and refused to apologize for what she did. Nathan was 17 at the time, and the story made local headlines for weeks. Not because it was particularly violent or scandalous, but because it made people uncomfortable. Elaine had assaulted a teacher, slapped him hard in front of students and staff. The teacher's name was Mr. Kellogg. He was Nathan's music instructor, beloved by many, but not by Nathan. Because for months, Kellogg had been abusing him, subtly, a hand on the back for too long, private tutoring sessions that turned into whispered threats. Nathan didn't tell anyone, not because he didn't want to, but because he didn't know how. Until his mother found the bruises. He'd fallen asleep on the couch one afternoon. His shirt had ridden up, revealing a mark, just one. But Elaine wasn't the kind of woman to dismiss a single bruise. She asked questions, gently, relentlessly. And when she realized what was happening, she didn't call the school. She didn't write a letter. She didn't wait for a meeting. She marched into Kellogg's classroom the next morning, in those very shoes, and hit him so hard he fell backward into a bass drum. The police were called. Elaine was charged with assault. The school launched an internal review, but Kellogg denied everything. There were no cameras back then, no recordings, just a scandalized town whispering about the crazy mother who attacked a teacher in broad daylight. At her hearing, she stood in front of the judge in those shoes and said, "If you think I'm sorry for defending my son, you'll be disappointed." She got probation, community service. Kellogg kept his job. Nathan remembered feeling humiliated, not by her actions, but by the rumors. The way classmates snickered behind his back. The way neighbors stared when they passed. He pushed her away, distanced himself, even left for college early. He never spoke to her about it again. And 2 years later, she died. A sudden stroke, gone before he could say thank you. He didn't cry at her funeral, couldn't. The grief was too tangled up in guilt, in shame, in things unsaid. But now, with the shoes in his lap and the attic dim around him, it hit him like a wave. Not just sadness, but memory. Her laugh, the way she hummed while folding laundry, the smell of cinnamon and cedar that clung to her cardigans, and that day in court how her voice didn't shake once. He didn't just remember her, he felt her. And that's when he noticed something odd. Tucked beneath the tissue paper was a letter, folded neatly, yellowed at the edges, addressed to my boy. He opened it with shaking fingers. Nathan, if you're reading this, it means you've found the shoes. I kept them because they remind me of the only day I ever stopped being afraid. I was scared for so long, sweetheart. Scared of being a bad mother, scared of not being enough, but that day, I wasn't scared, I was fire, and I would burn the world to keep you safe. I know I embarrassed you. I know you hated the attention. I watched you disappear inside yourself, and it broke my heart, but I never regretted what I did. Someday, I hope you'll understand. Maybe you'll have a child of your own, maybe you won't. But if you ever feel the weight of silence, the kind that makes your throat tight and your spine a creme brulee, it's okay to speak. It's okay to fight. Even if your voice trembles, even if your knees buckle. These shoes took my last brave steps, but they're yours now, and you'll know what to do when the time comes. Nathan read it twice, then 3 more times. And in that moment, something shifted. He went downstairs, shoes in hand, and opened a box he hadn't touched in years. Inside were old records from the case, newspaper clippings, a statement he'd written for the school board but never submitted, testimony he was too afraid to give. Names of other students who had come forward later, but too late. And he began to write. Not a story, a statement, a truth. He posted it publicly. Within 24 hours, it was shared thousands of times. More survivors came forward, not just from his school, but others, former students who had carried the same shame, the same silence. Some had never spoken of it before, but now they did, because someone else had. And in every interview, every message, every courtroom that followed, Nathan remembered the sound of his mother's heels clicking down the hallway. Steady, fierce, unapologetic. She hadn't just defended him that day. She had taught him how to stand. Her shoes still sit by his front door. Not because he wears them, but because he carries them forward. Every step,